how did you find the evaluation questions? Did you look at those evaluation questions? Oh, okay. Let me explain to you what they are, just so you understand. There was some years ago, many years ago, a non-Adventist educator who spoke, Simon and Roth, I'm talking about the values clarification, that had some really interesting new thoughts on what makes a value. And they said a value is not a real value unless you choose from alternatives, unless you choose it freely. Somebody's not forcing you to do this, or to believe this and so on. If you choose it from alternatives, you choose it freely. And they had about 7 different elements that were necessary. If you really value something, you're gonna prize it. You're gonna value it enough to speak up and publicly affirm it. If somebody is talking against it and you're in the group and so on, if it's a real value to you, you're not going to be quiet about that. You can say, wait a minute. No, I don't agree with that. You're going to say something. So values are that way. And, and so on and so forth. They have a number of these different things. Well, what I did was I made, and these questions would be different according to what age the student would be. Because you'd have different questions related to that. So based upon what it means to be a value for elementary and so on like that, we made some questions, and the questions are not for the students. The questions are for the teachers. To ask the teacher, is this subject being clarified? Are these values becoming values, or we just talk about it? One of the things that I'm sure you've heard and learned, and certainly the United States learned this when they were teaching drugs, about drug education and so on, is that just because you know something is right, it doesn't make it a value. They spend all this time, millions of dollars in the United States, training kids all about drugs and what was wrong with drugs and how they're harmful and so on. And all the kids could identify the drugs. They could all do this and so on. They knew all about them, all the different kinds and stuff, and what it did for your brain and all the stuff. But the amount of drug use in the United States was steady or going up. In other words, it had no impact. It was not impacting their lives. So they realized, wow, just telling them about it is not enough. And we make that same mistake when we teach values to our kids, even Adventist values. We suggest that because I told them that this is the 10 Commandments and God said, okay, well then they know and they're going to do it. But that's not the way people work. Values go beyond that. And Roth and Simon, they helped us understand that if this is going to be owned by somebody, there are certain things that has to happen. And we can help them own it when we can answer those questions. We gave them opportunities to go through the process so that they can own it. And so in teaching values, those are key questions, and they can help you. And you can make your own up, as you go along. Once you see the pattern of that, you can ask yourself, what are we doing to help the kids really own the value and not just know about it? Because it's not enough to know about it. They have to come to the place where they really own it. That's the problem we have in graduate school. All the graduate school students, and I was at a secular education conference where we were talking about this, and they said about 60 to 80% of the graduate school students, college students and graduate school students, were cheating. And they all knew it. The teachers knew it. Everybody knew it. And they all knew it was wrong. They all knew it was unethical. but they didn't own it enough to not to do it because they could get away with it. So, we can ask ourselves the same question. This is a good values clarification question. You can ask yourself, if you knew for sure, nobody would ever know, would you watch television on Sabbath? Would you, I'm not talking about Hope Channel. I'm talking about, other stuff. You can go on. You have your own things, take something that nobody would see you taking, or, you can fill in the blanks. If you knew for sure, nobody ever would find it out, So helping people think about those values, make those decisions about what, those decisions have to be made before you're in that position. And that's what we want to have people begin to clarify their values. Is this value just because I don't want to get caught? I don't want to get punished? I don't want people to laugh at me. What are the driving forces for these values? And for kids at different level, the pressures for these things are different. There's different kinds of levels. And we need to understand that as we go about it. So that's what these different boxes are for. And you may even want to add your own boxes extra. These are the ones that I've suggested here. Okay?
I'm interested at this time in whether any of you have had that similar feeling that you have textbooks in your classes, but integration of faith and learning is not part of what is written in the textbook. Do any of you have to teach subjects that you don't have the textbooks that present a Seventh-day Adventist point of view? How many of you have that condition? The rest of you have textbooks that have the Seventh-day Adventist viewpoint in them? All of them? That's great.
Well, I know South America has done a wonderful job. South America has, in fact, they sell them even to secular schools because the Adventists, but there's a lot of countries that don't have it.
Well, some of these people aren't raising their hands, and I know that they don't have textbooks in their countries that reflect Seventh-day Adventist beliefs. The people from China, I haven't seen a Chinese book yet that had a Seventh-day Adventist perspective in it. And some of you, even from Philippines, don't have that point of view. And I'm looking at Russia and several others around the world. In Africa, they don't have textbooks that have.
Seems to be a common problem.
Yeah, so it is.
So you were going to go ahead and ask.
Well, I was going to ask another question about your preferred future. If there was a tremendous need, and there's no doubt that there is, and you've taken a lot of time to produce some really good materials, very colorful, lots of hours put into it, and it's online. And not only that, the price is a wonderful price. It's very inexpensive. It's free. I mean, you can't beat that.
We didn't start out with that idea. We thought, oh, this is great. We're going to sell these books and so on. But, after a while, we sold a few of the books and so on. And finally, we said, shoot, let's just make it available to everybody. Any Adventist that wants this, let them have it.